For the first time ever on my channel, I'm going to be doing a ranking of the director's whole filmography, every movie that he's directed. And today's director, considering he just released a new film called Tenet, it's going to be Christopher Nolan. Before we jump into this ranking, I've made reviews for each of these films. I'll leave a little clickable card up in the corner here if you want to check those out. Those reviews I've done up there, they are spoiler free, but for this ranking, when I give a small review on these movies, they will contain spoilers, so consider that your spoiler warning. But now, onto the ranking. Coming in at last place at number 11, we have the following, which is Christopher Nolan's first movie. I think the budget was under $1 million. And considering that budget, and it's his directorial debut, this is a stunning film, you know. It fits into its small runtime perfectly. I believe it's only 75 minutes. The script is very efficient. Everything said is necessary to the plot for how it can progress, but then it doesn't feel forced trying to lead things on. I think out of all his movies, this is not the worst script, considering it had the fewest crew members or staff helping with it. So this movie is a great accomplishment of what someone who knows what they're doing can do without the budget, without the crew. You can do something like this, and it's real inspiration for people who are looking to become directors. The one thing that holds this one back, it's quite unfortunate, is the audio, sound, and camera quality. As I said, they don't have the budget, they don't have the equipment necessary, but it feels quite bad at points. It's very noticeable. They did the best they can. Christopher Nolan, he's also acknowledged it, that it wasn't the best, but they worked with what they got and they produced something which was a great accomplishment for that early on in his career. Coming in at 10th place, we have Insomnia, which was his third movie he made. It stars Al Pacino and Robin Williams, who both gave a very good performance as per usual. You could sense Al Pacino was a very tired and frustrated man throughout this whole movie, and Robin Williams has always been this beloved actor that everyone enjoys seeing on screen, but we've never seen him in this kind of creepy and calm, persuasive character. He did a really good job with it. I'm not sure I enjoyed seeing it, as I love Robin Williams so much. The only real bad thing I have to say about this movie is the pacing is sometimes off, but other than that, this movie, it just has this very simple plot and it executes it very well. It's nowhere near as ambitious as other movies on here. It's not as unique, so I believe that's why this movie is lower down. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just there are far better movies that he has made. Now moving into number 9, this is where things could get debatable. I have Interstellar. Now, as much as it had a lot of jaw-dropping visuals, it was an absolutely stunning looking movie. Everything looked great. The CGI, you could hardly tell it was computer generated. It all looked very real, especially the events that happened out in space. And Matthew McConaughey gave a great performance, perhaps one of the greater performances in the Nolan movie, and praise also given to Mackenzie Foy, who played his daughter Murph. They had this nice little relationship. You can see they both meant so much to each other, and when they got separated, it was very hard to see, and that's partially why you wanted McConaughey to succeed so badly, so he could be back with his daughter, which he inevitably is at a cost. And that's where I found this movie to drag down a bit, is the ending I found very silly. You know, Nolan's established these very realistic tones. As we don't know what's in a black hole, you have to kind of leave up to your imagination, but the fact that he can change time by going through this library of his memories didn't seem to match everything else that the movie had gone for, and it felt a bit like a cliche ending where it's like everyone gets their happy ending. It wandered very far off the tone that the rest of the movie had set. And in terms of the movie overall, it's very science-packed. You have to concentrate a lot, which is very tiring, especially when the duration is 3 hours. I felt as though it went on for about 20 minutes too long, maybe a bit longer, but I found it very hard to keep my attention on this movie, especially with all the sciencey dialogue going on without there actually being much happen between the characters. My debatable picks continue. In the number 8, we have The Dark Knight Rises. I know many people love this movie. They have it as one of the best Batman movies of all time, and I can see why. But in terms of his other movies, this one isn't as high up. They brought in a great new Batman villain, Bane. In Christopher Nolan's trilogy, we've seen villains that mess with you psychologically or mentally, but we've never seen a greater physical match that Batman has had to face, and you could really sense that in this movie, especially as he comes out of retirement to return as Batman. You can see how rusty he is. He was being too ambitious to try and take Bane on hand-to-hand combat, and he ends up getting his back broken. I like the introduction of Joseph Gordon-Levitt into this movie, as I like the character a lot, and I liked his relationship with Gordon, but the way they ended the character by having him be Robin, it didn't feel earned. I'd have liked to have seen him from the start, have him in the trilogy, and that would have been a really great ending for him. But as for introducing him just into this movie and then wanting us to be like, oh wow, it's Robin, it didn't feel totally earned. Now this is where I have some problems, is Christopher Nolan's two Batman movies prior to this one felt very realistic. They didn't feel like comic book movies at all. They were in this realistic world. And as much as these are in a realistic world, things go very comic booky, which isn't a bad thing as these are comic book movies, but as Christopher Nolan has set the ambition very high, when he changed up the tone for this movie to go for some huge ambitious stakes, it felt a bit odd for me and out of place. Maybe also because it's more heavy on CGI, which Christopher Nolan hasn't used too much. That's my problem with this movie. Also that Bane, as I said, was a great villain. They had a nice little twist in there with Talia, but the way Bane was just kicked out of the equation in the end just felt so against how he had been established in this movie, and it left me very annoyed. And now in 7th place I have Dunkirk, the war movie directed by obviously Christopher Nolan, which looks visually stunning once again. All the wide shots, you can see all the wreckage and destruction of this war thus far, and the use of the noise of planes and gunshots were very piercing to the ears. I believe the volume was upped a bit more than dialogue, as not only does it sound unlike any gunshots we'd heard, it sounded like it would be very realistic to the war, and every time it'd always get you to shut up if you were ever having a conversation with someone next to you. It covered these 3 point of views so we can get a broad look at parts of this war, but sometimes when it did that, it would go back to things previously covered, just look at it from a different perspective, and that can get confusing, especially if it all takes place during the day or at night. And as for the characters, they didn't get much dialogue to develop each other. We didn't know if they had anyone to go home to after the war, they had a family, anything like that. So I found it hard to care about any of the characters. And as many of you know, Tom Hardy is a fantastic actor and he did a great job in this movie, but I can't help but feel a bit disappointed that he was only confined to his plane with a mask on. He didn't get to show off his acting skills way too much. So just minor details which I was a bit annoyed about with this movie. Nonetheless, a great war movie. Coming in at number 6, we have Memento. This was just his film after following, and I just love the way this movie is told. As you know, Leonard, the main character by Guy Pearce, who did a great job, has this condition where he forgets things pretty much nearly instantly after being told them or learning them. So it made for some interesting ways of telling the story. It re-showed multiple things but in reverse and adding a bit more to it, and we were all confused just like the main character Leonard was. Everything about it is just well executed, very unique as you're following it from his perspective, and it makes the people around him very untrustworthy, as you don't know if there's more to them than meets the eye, if they've encountered each other before, stuff like that. And the attention to detail of this movie was fantastic. Now coming in at number 5, we have The Prestige, which had some very powerful performances from both Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. We have this great rivalry, you can really sense it, they obsess over each other, you can see what length people would go to destroy someone or to try and pursue their ambitions. Overall, it's just a great character study, let alone a great movie. As this movie is all about tricks and illusions, there's something behind the scenes which causes this trick, it's not magic. Nolan pretty much does the same with us by fooling us throughout this whole movie, demonstrating what his message of this movie was trying to give out. And it always has to have a twist with Nolan, and this twist was far greater than I could have predicted. But once you find out this twist and you go back and rewatch this, you can appreciate Christian Bale's performance a lot more, as he is playing 2 different characters, one who's pretending to be someone who's not. So overall, just a fantastic movie with some fantastic twists. I bet you were wondering when this would show up, and it's coming in at number 4 is Tenet, the new release, of course, by Christopher Nolan. This movie, just like another movie in this list, which we'll get to, is absolutely mind-blowing. Like most Christopher Nolan movies, the visuals are absolutely stunning. Just the way things play out. It has a very complex story, which is hard to explain. Like, I got asked after seeing the movie by my parents what it's about, as they didn't know, and I couldn't explain it. You just have to be straight up and just say, oh, it's a spy story with a little twist on it. That's just the easiest way to explain it. The action scenes in this were pretty standard, but then they have this twist of the inverted side of things that you learn about in this movie, which just makes it very great. Just seeing things in reverse while other people are going forward. You try and look out for all these little details. You can point something out which you did wrong, but no, your mind can't keep up with it as everything's in reverse. And my god, Christopher Nolan did a great job in here. I don't get why it's had so much hate. I still found it a fantastic movie with some great stunts, including crashing a real plane, some good performances. But the one thing that did annoy me about this was the lack of character depth to mainly also our protagonist, which is what he's named as in the credits. You don't even get to learn a name You don't know anything about the characters, so it kind of makes it hard for you to care about them if anything does happen to them. But nonetheless, a really great movie. Maybe higher up than people expected, but in number 3 I have Batman Begins. The untold style of origin story that Christopher Nolan gives for Batman is absolutely great. Everyone knows what happened to Batman's parents, about roughly how he becomes on his path becoming Batman, but this shows us something we haven't seen in a live action movie, The League of Shadows, how he is a ninja from the start and then he turns into this Batman. I love seeing origin stories with all these little details about how things work. Like sometimes you're going to skip over how they actually get these gadgets, but Christopher Nolan goes out of his way to show us how this Bruce Wayne became Batman, making his suit, making the Batmobile, getting all his little gadgets, and I absolutely love that so much. Christian Bale does a great job also as playing, well, Batman and Bruce Wayne. He balances multiple characters technically. He's Bruce Wayne, the rich and selfish man the public sees. He's the Caped Crusader of the Dark Knight, intimidating and scary vigilante that lingers in the shadows. But then he also puts on a different side so that Rachel can see his true colors as a person. You have to keep in mind around when this was made, most things prior to this had been very campy in the comic book genre. This just absolutely chucked out the window, made this very serious tone, which made it feel like it's in a real world, not a comic book movie. Very grounded, and it's not made so it can appeal to younger audiences. It's a very mature movie. Coming in at second place, we have Inception, which perhaps has some of the most mind-boggling visuals from any Christopher Nolan movie, and for me, the best executed and highest ambitious plot he has made. The plot was very ambitious and everything pays off. The cast was great, the acting was great, the dialogue was great. It mixes many genres so it can appeal to almost everyone. It can pull them in via a fishing rope or whatever. And every little detail they go out their way to explain, but it doesn't feel forced for us to understand. It's all very well done. Shows a lot of point of views, which I like to see, how it kept coming back from this. We can see in the dream world, out of the dream world, in the car. Layers and layers and layers into the dream world. It all got very complex, but if you kept along with it, understood everything, then my god, was it a great movie. I absolutely love these type of endings where it doesn't have a definite answer. You can just make of it what you will, just like they do in this movie. I made of it what I will, and I absolutely loved it. And if you're up to date with Christopher Nolan's movies, you know that either Inception or this one will come in at first place. So yes, coming in first place, we have The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan's sequel to Batman Begins. Once again, feels more like a superhero movie, feels very grounded. They mix a lot of political stuff into it, which was very interesting and very engaging. The parts without action are just as good as the parts with it, as the story was so great and engaging. Everything you wanted to know, you just wanted to keep watching. You didn't want the movie to end, especially since it had one of the greatest villains on screen ever. Heath Ledger's The Joker deserved that Oscar. It was truly a great performance. In movies we've seen crazy villains, but you can't really understand why they're crazy. This one just takes crazy to the whole new level. Everything he gives you, you don't know if it's true or not. He's a trickster, and also he's very insane, so you don't know if he's telling the truth or not. But a lot of credit has to go to Aaron Eckhart, who gave a great performance as Harvey Dent and Two-Face. I think he's a bit outshone by Heath Ledger's performance, but I'm giving him the credit here. Everything is great. I could go on for ages. I think Maggie Gyllenhaal was a big upgrade on Katie Holmes as Rachel Dawes, and on top of that, she felt more connected to Bruce than Katie Holmes did. So I loved this movie overall. Fantastic. One of the greatest movies out there, let alone comic book movies. Thank you so much for watching. I'd really like to know what your ranking would be, so if you'd like to comment down below, I'll make sure to read that and reply to that. As well, if you could like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. But anyways, thank you for watching all of my Christopher Nolan videos if you have. Hope to see you in my next video. Peace.